I've noticed, having gone through this myself, this journey, and also noticing this transformation process in a few different of the people that I've been working with who are really in, like I said, transformation process right now. And sometimes what happens with the intuitive messages or the guidance or the 3D expressions of signs and signals sent to me from the universe is it feels a little bit like a puzzle piece. I'll get something and I'll recognize that I've received it, but I won't fully integrate it or understand the meaning on a deeper level or the integration. And which I love because there's something about that process that just feels so nice. I wish I could think of a better way to describe it, but it's like getting these little Morse code pieces or these little puzzle pieces of like 1, 2, 3, and they seem like they're floating around a little bit. And when the last piece of that puzzle or key is provided, the other ones kind of esoterically flow together, combined, alchemize, and then you see this like glowing kind of vision in front of you when you get that hit of the full integration. So I was getting the numbers 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which I was like, oh, okay, this is new. That was relatively new for me in the last 6 months. I was used to getting the triple repeating digits 4, 4, 4, 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 3, all those good things. And in the last 3 to 6 months is when I started getting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on the clock, on plates. And then it started to be mostly 1, 2, 3s, would shift a little bit. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and then 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm definitely recognizing that I'm receiving this, but I'm not fully reaching the aha moment of this is what this means. Okay. Until then, I started to see my other people that I'm working with, a few select of those individuals who it was coming up for, and even to the point where their sessions were scheduled during this time, and I'm in the flow and session with them. And of course, it catches my eye at the perfect time of they're seeing me from 12 to 1 p.m. and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm like, okay, you've got this energy going on. And so the message pulled together. This is the confirmation of the transition that these people are underway and that I went through myself. And I should say, like, still going through. I don't know if I'm fully on the other side or if you ever fully get to the other side of this. But this 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6 is the escalation of that unfolding, that transformation process. And the transformation is recognizing my soul self and my heart-based, soul-seated, intuitive guidance and information that comes from that zone versus my human, analytical, very abstract reasoning, conscious decision making mind that is much more tied to the ego. And when I say ego, I think in layman's terms, a lot of us are used to hearing that word and going like, oh, are you calling me egotistical? We all have an ego. That's just part of being in human form. You have to have an ego. You have to have an identity. You have to have an ability to hold recognition of your self, right? Of your awareness of oneself. And that comes from the ego identity. So having that is not a wholly negative thing. Having that be the decision maker that's in the driver's seat is not a way in living that's going to lead you up onto your highest path that you're destined for, where you're in that more deep level of soul alignment. So that's what we're talking about, is this transformation unfolding of these individuals recognizing these two pieces of themselves. And so during the 1, 2, 3 process, when I'm getting a lot of signs around those numbers for people, this is what they're starting to notice is It feels like I have two different minds. And there's beauty to that. Like when I notice that they're in that process of transformation with the 1, 2, 3 energy coming forward, confirming that, and they're recognizing like, ooh, this part of me and this part of me, like, huh, beautiful, beautiful, right? This is the beginnings of a deeper level of spiritual ascension, if you will. And I know I'm saying like deeper at the same time when I'm talking about ascension. And I think that's not a mistake because, like a tree, you need to really have an anchoring, a deeply rooted sense of safety, security, and identity. And this is where, again, like the ego identity is important. We're not going to like throw it out the window and have a complete, you know, lack of ability to recognize yourself. So deeply rooted, anchored into yourself, like a tree, you need that in order to have the ability to then rise up as far as you can into that ascension. Because if you don't have that foundation and the base chakras of your red root chakra, orange solar plexus right below your navel, and yellow solar plexus kind of in between your sternum and your navel, right? Those are what we know as more of like the grounding base chakras that are connected to rooting, anchoring, feeling safe and secure within yourself. And that work happens in order for you to be able to really do the ascension work of the upper level chakra points, energy centers. So it's a beautiful thing when I'm recognizing my clients are going through this. And yet, I want to normalize. It doesn't always feel like a beautiful thing for them. I think there's an idea, there could be like an idealized understanding of, or concept really, like an idealized vision of what spiritual awakening and ascension means. And, like all the music in the background of the angelic choir. And there's a lot of shadow work that you just have to walk through as a part of that ascension. As the more light comes in, it shines onto those shadowy places, and it's meant to. You can't ignore those and ascend upward, right? Because the addressing, surfacing, allowing the emotional processing to happen for all of those potential wounded areas, like inner child work for real, is a part of the ascension process. Is going to rise up. And when I'm noticing these individuals holding this beginnings of reckoning with two different pieces of myself, I almost have like two different center points inside of myself from which I can make decisions or discern information. And that is this intuitive mind or this very like human analytical mind. That can feel sticky and dense and confusing when you're first starting to be in the transformation. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to be in that transformation too. So we want to be able to not give a judgment or negative label onto the feelings of like, ooh, that feels difficult to hold these two things at the same time, as I'm beginning to have the awareness of these two different center points from which I can choose to make a decision or live my life or be guided at any point in time. So if you're feeling some dense energy as you're on this ascension journey coming to surface, It's good. It's a good thing, right? You deserve to do that healing work. And a part of it is recognizing that when you have solid foundations of safety and security, then the inner child wounds are able to rise up to surface. And so the surfacing itself, we want to honor as a sacred part of this rising up into your highest divinity and anchoring more of your higher self energy into embodiment. One of my clients that is going through this process kind of noted it as, essentially like this is causing a little bit of an identity crisis. I said, yes, absolutely. Or I think I used that language to help to put some words to what this person was expressing to me, what they were going through. Like, yes, this is causing a little bit of an identity crisis because you have been functioning for the last 30 years from the very, like, I stay in the driver's seat of control, human, more ego based. I'm the decision maker here from my frontal cortex, abstract reasoning, analytical mind. Let me like robotic. That's that little noise there is like robotic kind of equation. Like, what am I going to do here? Right. And you are also starting to feel this pulsating, glowing piece of yourself as you're doing the healing work with me on the trauma wounds. You just are naturally starting to hear this part of yourself speak to you. The whispers of your soul, right, are becoming a little more audible as you're going through your journey on the clinical therapy work with me. So this is like so integrated, all of the holistic healing that is happening naturally without me intending sometimes. As I'm doing that clinical work, the next session they'll come in and say something that feels like it's very energetic and spiritual. And I'm like, it's so amazing that there's pieces of what happens energetically with the work that I do and the kind of, I don't know, like higher level healing that comes through me that leaves me in awe of just how it unfolds more beautifully than I could have planned, and more naturally, and just such a flow. It's just such a beautiful flow. So we're noticing this identity confusion element to it of, you're recognizing two parts of yourself, and this piece has always existed. And I think there's a part of it that was like, I don't want to have to, let's say this is like the intuitive mind space, and this is the seat of which I've been functioning for the last 30 years out of a wounded space where like I very much want to maintain a sense of control over what is unfolding in my life and decision making, which takes you sometimes off course from soul alignment. Because if you are in the driver's seat, then sometimes in that very ego human based mindset, analytics, you are making decisions on what you can see, and that's not necessarily involving a whole lot of trust and faith or room for your divine spirit team, guardian angels, loved ones, whatever you want to call that, to step into the driver's seat at times. Sometimes we want them to be in the driver's seat because they have a higher perspective than we have right now. The issue is there's a lot of tension there because that we have to relinquish our illusions of human-based concepts of power and control to step into more faith and trust, to recognize divine power, right? And that is the clearing out of the solar plexus power center. It was all yellow. Shift. And so the guidance that is coming out of this normalizing and recognizing, like, yeah, it's okay, you're having that, is, there's like a little bit of grief or sorrow coming up and attachment even there. Like the old me, I'm going to have to say goodbye to and let go of in order to step into this new me. And something about that feels sad. And again, is connected into I'm having this identity crisis. And then I'm pulling that together and helping to ease that sentiment by acknowledging this is not about old you, new you. This is about true you, and letting go. I'm imagining like these layers of heavy blanket over heavy blanket, right? This is taking off the heaviness that has, those blankets of like suppression that came from experiences that you've had in your life, in your early childhood, in your family dynamics, you name it, that have, you know, added another layer of heaviness and density on top of you. We are just setting those down. And so this is a returning. This is not a full transformation where you're going from like this old me to this new me. And I'm saying goodbye to these parts of me, right? It is more the truest version of myself is something that I cannot lose and I cannot find. It is always there. It is always there. It's just a matter of how much I'm tuning into that frequency and how safe I feel to be able to do the work and the healing of taking off of those 5 layers of coats that are weighing me down. This is a returning to who you truly are. And so we don't really need to have grief around that, do we? Because when you were in the energy of density with these, 5 heavy jackets on top of you, was that you? Was that the real you? Or was that a watered down version of who you really are? Was that a controlled? Were you more controlled? Not I'm controlling my path, but I am actually chained down, right, by these illusions. And that's what we're letting go of. In the meantime, though, as you're on this healing journey and there's more trauma work, EMDR, clinical practice that is unfolding for you, energy is real. That needs to be attended to. It can't be bypassed. So you may be in a period of time where you feel some of that tension a little bit between this transformation process that you're in that's unfolding. And what I want you to be able to do is surrender to that a little bit and recognize it in its totality as a beautiful thing, right? The tension itself is showing me I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm stretching. The rising up of these certain things, even if that includes these waves that we need to ride of this emotional energy that's being released, that also has a lot of somatic elements to it as well. Like I suddenly feel this like heaviness on my chest, right? Lift your shoulders up and back, open your heart space, then do the deep breathing. So just pulling together all of that, because I think sometimes people can do that deep breathing exercise that they've been taught in therapy, and their frame is like constricted like this from the trauma and the density of the emotional energy that is like causing some somatic symptoms. And it's like, you're not going to get a whole lot of benefit out of that. I think if you are, or you're not going to maximize the benefit if you're not doing the prep work for it too, which by prep work, I just simply mean when I'm teaching people to do that body work and they're in my office, I call that out. I noticed as we just started talking about this, your body shifted. It's looking a little closed and constricted. And I walk them through that. Okay, lift back up, pull your shoulders up and back a little bit, open up. Can you feel your heart expanding a bit more like that? Another helpful thing you can do is just put your fingertips together, kind of creating like that triangle, gentle pressure there, and put it on your heart space as you pull up and back and do that breathing. in through your nose for about a 4 count, little pause at the top, out through your mouth for about a 5 count. The deep exhale is important. A lot of times people do that breathing, and there's more focus on the inhale, which is going to get you too much oxygen in, and it's going to drive up your nervous system activation instead of settle it down and kick into that peaceful parasympathetic system, right? It's the exhalation that cues your nervous system and that vagus nerve to kick back into seated relaxation and peace. Okay. So I didn't anticipate share that breathing exercise. That was like a little bit of a tangent. So back on track with the point I'm trying to make here is the surrender and the holding space for your transformation. We don't jump from A to B, right? Like there's the transformation line in between that path that you're walking on, and how do you meet yourself on that path with more grace and self-compassion, because that's a key ingredient to that transformation itself and the unlocking. And so this person is asking kind of toward the end, they're like, so I should just be practicing doing nothing in between now and next time we meet. And like, I kind of understand what you're saying and the surrender, and I get you, and I'm on point with it, and you're hitting the marks on what I'm experiencing right now, and it makes sense to me intuitively. And this person is honestly, like, a lot of the people that end up being drawn to work with me are intuitively gifted and are opening up those gifts more and more. Some people recognize that from the jump, and they know when they start working with me, oh, I've already done my own Reiki master's program, or I've known I've been receiving things from the time I was a little kid, but I haven't felt safe to fully dive into that. And then I have other people who had no idea they had psychic gifts and just thought, I really have a massive clinical anxiety. And as they work with me over time, I start to get my own messages. Like, I don't always recognize it from the jump, but then I'll be like 3 months in, I'm like, ooh, this is what's coming through from spirit for you today. Like, you're unlocking a next level of your psychic gifts. And I had a beautiful little example of that with a different client, and spirit brought through this memory. I'm like, you sometimes, like, this is not the first time that this has happened, and I think you've been mislabeling sometimes the level of clinical anxiety you have for some energetic gifts that you weren't in touch with. And this is why you haven't made a whole lot of progress in other therapy sessions, because she's got this sweet spot in working with me of having somebody who can kind of see all avenues of what it is that are going on for her. But spirit brought through this really lovely memory of validation to say, when you were a little kid, were you sitting like on a swing set and observing this interact, like you had this moment of knowing before it happened, this little boy who's a little bit older than me is about to get hurt in this kind of way. And then boom, it happened right after. And she's like, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I said, okay. So validation of what I just told you, that you have some energetic gifts that you haven't been as in tune with. That's going to be a part of the work that we do together, which is necessary for you to get the amount of traction that you want with what you're perceiving as fully clinical in nature in regard to that generalized anxiety disorder. So as he's saying, so just do nothing. Like, how do I do that? How do I just do nothing? And I'm not sure if I'm going to feel good about doing nothing. And I had another person who was in retirement who was talking about that when people are asking him, and even when I ask him, like, how are you doing? How was your week? And what's going on? I'm like, oh, I did a whole lot of nothing. And I said to this person, you're doing a whole lot of nothing pretty damn well. I am impressed. Like, this is what it's about, right? Because he is in presence. And so surrender is not meaning inaction. It's not bowing out. It's not nothing, right? If you're doing nothing really well, that is mindfulness, that is presence. when you're in the moment so fully that you're embodying presence in your life, then you'll start to realize nothing may come more from spending a whole lot of time thinking about the past or projecting into the future. Maybe those avenues have more nothingness inside of them than embodied presence does, right? So we're talking about stepping even more into your life when you hit that sweet spot of surrender and you start to realize, what does it actually mean to surrender? And this is allowing, I'm doing this, I keep having this motion of like almost wanting to like open up open up my rib cage, like open up your heart space so that your divine self and your soul, which does have a lot of, it makes me feel like part of the intuitive mind really comes from a heart-centeredness. That is really living your life, isn't it? I'm thinking about that. I think it's a country song that says, to live like you were dying. If I only had, like if I knew I were dying, I had 6 months left. And, it's talking about presence. And I would just like really take in all of the things. I would be so in the moment. I would stop doing the nothingness of thinking a whole lot about the past and ruminating on that, or projecting a whole lot into the future and planning for that. And are you a human? Do you have to have practicality? Do you have to have some action involved? Yes, for sure. This surrender is not about inaction. It's about following the nudges as they come inside of presence. And you're going to get more information and more divinely guided nudges inside of that presence that then will require some action around it. And this is how you start to move in a way that is spiritually led. I'm being led by my higher self, and I'm walking into my highest path of alignment.